The blood on her dress had turned from crimson to rust brown. And when Ryder Garrison first saw the woman lying in his barn among the hay bales that August morning in 1874, he thought she was dead. He had been checking on his horses before the Colorado sun climbed too high, and there she was, curled on her side like a child, her dark hair matted with sweat and straw, one hand resting protectively over the swell of her belly. His heart lurched in his chest as he approached slowly, his boots quiet against the dirt floor. She was breathing, thank God, her chest rising and falling in shallow movements that made the fabric of her torn dress flutter. He knelt beside her, taking in the bruises on her arms, the cut above her eyebrow, the way her face was pale as milk even in the dim light filtering through the barn slats. Ryder reached out tentatively, touching her shoulder with rough fingers made gentle by concern. "Madam," he whispered, his voice barely above a breath. When she did not stir, he tried again, this time letting his hand rest more firmly on her arm. Her eyes flew open, wild with terror, and she scrambled backward into the hay, her hands coming up to protect her face as if expecting a blow. "Please, no more," she gasped, her voice cracking. "I did not mean to trespass. I will leave. Just please do not hurt me." The fear in her voice cut through him like a blade. Ryder held up both hands, palms out, keeping his distance. "You are safe now," he said quietly, his voice steady and calm despite the racing of his pulse. "No one is going to hurt you here. I promise you that." Her eyes, he noticed, were a startling shade of green, like spring grass after rain, and they searched his face with desperate intensity, looking for signs of deception or cruelty. Whatever she found there must have reassured her because some of the tension left her shoulders, though she remained pressed against the hay bales, watching him with the wariness of a cornered animal. He could see she was young, perhaps 20 or 21, and her condition was unmistakable. 6 months along, he guessed, maybe 7. "My name is Ryder Garrison," he continued, keeping his voice low and even. "This is my ranch about 5 miles outside Colorado City. You are in Colorado territory. You remember how you got here?" She shook her head slowly, one hand moving to her belly in an unconscious gesture of protection. "I walked," she said finally, her voice barely audible. "I walked for days. I saw your barn from the ridge when the moon was still up. I just needed somewhere to rest, just for a few hours. I did not think anyone would mind if I just slept a little." Her words tumbled out faster now, edged with panic. "I will go now. I am sorry for the intrusion. I did not take anything. You can check." "Easy now," Ryder said, his brow furrowing with concern. "I am not asking you to leave. I am asking if you are hurt, if you need help." He studied her more carefully, taking in the state of her clothing, the dust and grime that spoke of hard travel. "Have you eaten? When was the last time you had a proper meal?" Her silence was answer enough. Ryder stood slowly, careful not to make any sudden movements that might spook her. "Can you stand? Let me help you to the house. I have food, water, a place where you can rest properly." When she hesitated, he added, "I give you my word as a Christian man that you will come to no harm under my roof. But you cannot stay out here in the barn. It is not right and it is not safe, not in your condition." She looked at him for a long moment, and he could see the war being waged behind those green eyes. Fear battled with exhaustion, pride with desperation. Finally, exhaustion won. She nodded, just a slight dip of her chin, and tried to push herself up from the hay. Her legs shook with the effort, and Ryder moved forward instinctively, offering his arm for support. This time she took it, her fingers gripping his forearm with surprising strength. She smelled of dust and sweat and something metallic that made his jaw tighten. Blood, he realized. The stains on her dress were not old injuries. "Are you bleeding?" he asked, trying to keep the alarm from his voice. Is it the baby? No, she said quickly. No, it stopped yesterday. It is not the baby. It is from, she paused, swallowing hard, from before. When I left. A dozen questions burned on Ryder's tongue, but he swallowed them down. There would be time for answers later, once she was fed and rested and no longer looking like she might collapse at any moment. Together, they made their way slowly from the barn to the house, a modest structure of timber and stone that Ryder had built with his own hands 3 years ago when he first claimed this land. It was simple but solid, with 2 rooms and a good fireplace that kept it warm through the harsh Colorado winters. He helped her up the 3 steps to the porch, noting how she winced with each movement, how her breathing came short and labored. Inside, the house was tidy in the way of a man who lived alone and took pride in his space. A table and 2 chairs occupied one corner, a bed with a patchwork quilt another. The fireplace took up most of one wall, and shelves lined with books and supplies filled the spaces between. Ryder guided her to one of the chairs, and she sank into it with a small sound of relief. "Wait here," he said unnecessarily, as she looked in no condition to go anywhere. He moved to the stove, stoking the coals that still held some heat from his morning coffee. Within minutes he had water heating and was pulling out supplies from his pantry. Bread, not too stale, some preserved beef, a jar of peaches he had been saving, an egg from the chickens. As he worked, he was acutely aware of her watching him, still tense, still ready to bolt if he made any wrong move. "I know you probably have questions," he said over his shoulder, keeping his tone conversational. "And I have some of my own, I will not lie. But right now, let us just get some food in you, everything else can wait." He heard her shift in the chair, the creak of the wood. "Why are you being kind to me?" Her voice was small, bewildered. "You do not know me, I could be anyone, I could be trouble." Ryder turned to face her, holding a plate with thick slices of bread. "Could be," he acknowledged. "But right now, all I see is a woman who needs help. That is enough." He set the bread in front of her along with a cup of water from the pump. "My mother raised me to believe that we are judged by how we treat those who cannot help us in return. Seems to me you fit that description at the moment." She stared at the bread as if it were made of gold, and when she finally reached for it, her hands trembled. She ate slowly at first, then faster, tearing into the bread with an urgency that spoke of true hunger. Ryder said nothing, just returned to the stove to scramble the egg and heat the beef. He added the peaches to a bowl and brought everything to the table, setting it before her with quiet efficiency. She ate it all, every crumb and morsel, washing it down with 2 cups of water. When she finally sat back, color had returned to her cheeks, and some of the haunted look had left her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. "I cannot remember the last time someone showed me such kindness." "What is your name?" Ryder asked gently, pulling out the other chair and sitting across from her. Now that she was fed and some of the immediate crisis had passed, he needed to understand what he was dealing with. "Emma," she said after a pause. "Emma Jenkins." She met his eyes, and there was a defiant sort of honesty in her gaze. "And before you ask, no, I do not have a husband." "The baby's father," she stopped, her jaw tightening. "He is not in the picture. He will not be coming for me if that is what you are worried about." "I am not worried," Ryder said, though he filed that information away. "Where did you come from, Emma Jenkins? Where were you walking from when you ended up in my barn?" Her hands twisted together in her lap. "Denver. I was working at a boarding house there. When my condition became apparent, the owner told me I had to leave, said I was bringing shame to her establishment. I had nowhere else to go, and I remembered hearing that Colorado City was a smaller town, growing, might need workers. I thought perhaps I could find something, somewhere that would take me in despite," she gestured to her belly. This. Denver to Colorado City on foot was over 70 miles, much of it rough terrain. Ryder felt something twist in his chest at the thought of this woman, alone and pregnant, making such a journey. "You walked the whole way." "I got a ride on a freight wagon for the first day," Emma said. "But the driver, her voice dropped. "He wanted payment that I was not willing to give. So I left in the night and continued on foot. It took me nearly 2 weeks. I slept where I could, ate what I could find or what kind souls would spare." Her hand moved to the bruises on her arms, and Ryder understood without asking that not all the souls she had encountered had been kind. "The blood on your dress?" he asked carefully. Emma's face went pale again. "3 days ago I stopped at a farm, asking for work or food. The man there, he tried to." She stopped, swallowing hard. "His wife came out and stopped him, but not before he had struck me, torn my dress. His wife gave me some bread and told me to run, that he would be worse when he had been drinking. So I ran, and I did not stop until I could not run any more. That is when I saw your ranch." Rage, hot and sudden, flooded through Ryder's veins. He forced himself to breathe slowly, to unclench his fists under the table. Emma was watching him with wide eyes, as if expecting that anger to be directed at her. "I am sorry that happened to you," he said, his voice rough with emotion he could not quite contain. "You deserved better. You deserve better." Something in her expression cracked just a little, and he saw moisture gathering in her eyes. She blinked it away quickly, straightening her shoulders. "The world does not much care what unmarried pregnant women deserve," she said with a bitterness that aged her voice. "I learned that quickly enough." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of her words hanging between them. Outside, Ryder could hear his horses moving in the corral, the familiar sounds of his ranch carrying on as they always did. But inside this room, something had shifted. A responsibility had been placed on his shoulders, one he had not asked for but could not turn away from. "You can stay here," he said finally, "for as long as you need. I have space, I have food, and I could use help around the ranch if you are willing to work for your keep once you are feeling stronger. But there is no pressure, no expectation. You will be safe here, Emma. I swear it to you." She looked at him as if he had just spoken in a foreign language. "You would let me stay, just like that. But you do not know anything about me. I could be lying about everything." "Are you?" "No, but you have no way of knowing that," Ryder shrugged. "I am a pretty good judge of character. Spent enough years working cattle drives and dealing with all sorts to know when someone is spinning tales. You are not lying, Emma. You are scared and tired and have been treated poorly by people who should have known better. That is the truth I see, and that is enough for me." He stood, moving to a trunk in the corner of the room. From it he pulled a clean shirt and a blanket. "For now you should rest. You can have the bed. I will sleep out here by the fire." "I cannot take your bed," Emma protested, trying to stand. "You have already done so much." "I insist," Ryder said firmly. "You are in no condition to argue, and I will not have it on my conscience if something happens to you or the baby because you were too proud to accept help." He said it kindly, but there was steel underneath, a tone that suggested the matter was not up for debate. Emma must have heard it too because she nodded slowly, accepting the clean shirt from his hands. "There is a basin and water behind that curtain," he gestured to a partition in the corner. "You can wash up, change into something clean. Your dress, I can try to mend it, or if you prefer, I can ride into town tomorrow and see about getting you some proper clothes." "I have no money to pay for clothes," Emma said quietly. "Did I ask for money?" Ryder countered gently. "Please, Emma, let me help." "You can pay me back in work later if it makes you feel better about accepting charity, though I do not see it that way. I see it as being a decent human being." This time when the tears came, Emma did not blink them away. They rolled down her cheeks in silent tracks, and she nodded, clutching the clean shirt to her chest. "I do not understand why you are doing this," she whispered, "but thank you so much." Ryder felt his own throat tighten with emotion. "Get some rest," he said gruffly. "We can talk more when you wake up." He left her then, stepping outside to give her privacy. The August sun was climbing higher, and he had work to do, fences to mend and animals to tend. But his mind was not on his chores as he walked back to the barn. Instead, he kept seeing Emma's face, the fear and hope warring in her green eyes, the way she had flinched when he first approached. Someone had hurt her badly, and not just recently. The bruises on her arms were in various stages of healing, suggesting a pattern of abuse rather than a single incident. The baby's father, he suspected, had been the source of much of that pain. And when Emma's condition had become undeniable, instead of stepping up to his responsibilities, the coward had likely thrown her out or abandoned her. Ryder had seen it before. Good women left to bear the shame and burden alone, while the men who had helped create the situation walked away without consequence. It made his blood boil, this fundamental injustice, but there was nothing he could do about the past. What he could do was ensure Emma's future was better, at least for as long as she was under his roof. He spent the morning working on the fence line that bordered his southern pasture, the physical labor helping to settle his churning thoughts. Ryder had been alone on this ranch for 3 years now, ever since he had mustered out of the cavalry and decided to make a go of civilian life. He was 32 years old enough to have seen his share of hardship and loss. His parents were dead, killed in a cholera outbreak when he was 20. He had no siblings, no family to speak of except for a cousin back east that he had not seen in over a decade. The loneliness had never bothered him much before. He had his horses, his cattle, his land. It was enough, or so he had told himself. But having Emma in his house, even for just a few hours, had awakened something he had not realized was sleeping. The sound of another person breathing, the knowledge that he was not alone, it stirred feelings he had thought long buried. Not attraction, not yet, though he would be lying if he said he had not noticed she was beautiful despite her current state. No, it was something more fundamental than that. A need to protect, to provide, to matter to someone. He had spent so long being self-sufficient that he had forgotten what it felt like to be needed. When he returned to the house around midday to check on Emma, he found her still sleeping, curled on her side in his bed with the blanket pulled up to her chin. She looked younger in sleep, the lines of worry smoothed from her face. Her dark hair had dried into waves that spread across the pillow, and one hand rested on her belly in that protective gesture he had noticed earlier. Ryder stood in the doorway for a moment, just watching her breathe, feeling the weight of what he had taken on settle more firmly on his shoulders. Then he quietly closed the door and returned to his work. Emma slept through the afternoon and into the evening. When she finally emerged from the bedroom, the sun was setting in brilliant shades of orange and pink across the Colorado sky. Ryder was at the stove, cooking a simple supper of beans and cornbread. He turned when he heard her footsteps and found her standing uncertainly in the doorway, wearing his shirt which hung nearly to her knees. She had washed, he noticed, her face clean and her hair pulled back in a simple braid. Without the grime of travel obscuring her features, he could see her more clearly. She had high cheekbones and a delicate nose, a full mouth that probably smiled often when life was not beating her down. Her eyes were still wary, but some of the fear had receded, replaced with cautious hope. "Feeling better?" he asked, keeping his tone light. "Much," Emma said softly. "I did not mean to sleep so long. You should have woken me. I could have helped with supper or the chores." You needed the rest, Ryder said, dishing beans into 2 bowls. Besides, I have been managing on my own for 3 years. I think I can handle one more day. He brought the food to the table, gesturing for her to sit. Tomorrow will be soon enough to talk about how you can help if you are still inclined to stay. Emma sat, pulling the bowl toward her. If the offer still stands, I would like to stay, at least for a while, until I can figure out what to do next, where to go when the baby comes. She spoke matter-of-factly, but Ryder could hear the uncertainty underneath. When are you due? He asked. Late October, early November, Emma said. I am not entirely sure of the exact date. The midwife in Denver thought perhaps the first week of November. That gave them about 3 months. Ryder did some quick calculations in his head. 3 months to prepare, to make sure Emma was healthy and safe, to figure out what came after. That is plenty of time, he said with more confidence than he felt. We will make sure you have everything you need when the time comes. There is a doctor in Colorado City, Doc Harrison. Good man, knew him from my cavalry days. He will take care of you, no questions asked, if that is what you are worried about. Emma's eyes widened. You were in the cavalry for 8 years, Ryder confirmed. Joined when I was 24, served until I was 30. Saw most of the territory from Kansas to California and decided Colorado was where I wanted to settle. Bought this land with my mustering out pay and what savings I had managed to keep. It is not much, but it is mine, bought and paid for. It is more than most people have, Emma said quietly. It is beautiful country. When I crested that ridge and saw your ranch in the moonlight, I thought it looked like something from a dream. All this open space, the mountains in the distance, the sky so big you could drown in it. She paused, a small smile touching her lips. I grew up in St. Louis. Everything was crowded there, buildings on top of buildings, people everywhere. I did not know spaces like this existed until I came west. They ate in companionable silence for a few minutes, and Ryder found himself studying her when he thought she was not looking. There was a quiet strength about Emma, a resilience that spoke of someone who had been knocked down repeatedly but kept getting back up. He admired that, respected it. What made you come west in the first place? He asked. Emma set down her spoon, her expression growing distant. My father died when I was 16, left my mother and me with nothing but debts. My mother, Emma swallowed hard. She did what she had to do to keep us fed and housed. I do not fault her for it, but I could not live that life. So when I turned 18, I took what little money I had saved and bought a ticket on a freight wagon heading to Denver. I had heard there was work there, opportunities for women who were willing to work hard, and there was for a while. What kind of work did you do? Whatever I could find. I worked in a laundry, then a restaurant, then the boarding house. It was good work, honest work. I was saving money, thinking maybe I could open my own business someday, a bakery perhaps. I have always been good with bread and pastries. Her hand moved to her belly again. And then I met someone I thought cared about me. I was foolish and naive, and I believed his promises. When I told him about the baby, he called me a liar and said it was not his. He disappeared the next day, and I never saw him again. The pain in her voice was fresh, despite the matter-of-fact way she delivered the words. Ryder felt that surge of anger again, directed at a man he had never met and likely never would. He was the fool, Ryder said firmly. Any man who would abandon his responsibilities like that is not worthy of your tears or your thoughts. Emma looked at him, something shifting in her expression. You are very different from most men I have known, she said slowly. Different in a good way, she added quickly, as if afraid he might take offense. Most men, they either want something from you or they want to punish you for existing. But you just want to help. Why is that? What do you get out of helping me? It was a fair question. one rider had to think about for a moment. "I suppose I get to sleep better at night," he said finally, "knowing I did the right thing when it mattered. My mother used to say that character is not built in the big moments, it is built in the small choices we make every day. Choosing to help someone who needs it, that is a small choice that matters. At least to me it does." "Your mother sounds like she was a wise woman." "She was," Ryder agreed, feeling the familiar ache of old grief. "She and my father both died when I was 20. Cholera took them within days of each other. I like to think they would approve of me helping you, that I am honoring the values they tried to instill in me." Emma reached across the table, her hand covering his before she seemed to realize what she was doing and pulled back quickly. "I am sorry for your loss," she said softly, "but I think you are right. I think they would be very proud of the man you have become." The moment stretched between them, charged with something neither was quite ready to name. Ryder cleared his throat, standing to collect their empty bowls. "We should get some rest," he said. "Tomorrow I will ride into town, let Doc Harrison know you are here, pick up some supplies, including proper clothes for you." He held up a hand as she started to protest. "No arguments. You cannot spend the next 3 months wearing my shirts." "Well, you could, but you would be more comfortable in something that actually fits." Emma stood as well, and this time when she smiled, it reached her eyes. "You are a stubborn man, Ryder Garrison." "So I have been told," he said, returning the smile. "Now go on, get back to bed. You are still recovering from your journey." This time Emma did not argue. She returned to the bedroom, closing the door softly behind her. Ryder made up a pallet near the fireplace, using extra blankets and his saddle for a pillow. It was not comfortable, but he had slept in worse conditions during his cavalry days. As he lay in the darkness, listening to the sounds of the house settling around him, he thought about the strange turn his life had taken in the course of a single day. This morning he had been alone, his biggest concern whether to move the cattle to the north pasture or wait another week. Now he had a pregnant woman sleeping in his bed, a woman who was looking to him for protection and guidance, a woman who had somehow already started to matter to him in ways he did not quite understand. It was dangerous, he knew, to care too much too fast. Emma would not be staying forever. She had made that clear. She was here until the baby came, until she could figure out her next move. It would be foolish to let himself imagine anything beyond that, to start building castles in the air about a future that included her. And yet, as he drifted off to sleep, he could not quite stop himself from hoping that maybe, just maybe, she would choose to stay longer than she planned. The next morning dawned clear and bright, perfect weather for the ride into Colorado City. Ryder was up early, as was his habit, and had coffee brewing and breakfast started before Emma emerged from the bedroom. She looked better today, he noted with satisfaction. More color in her cheeks, less tension around her eyes. "Good morning," she said, her voice shy. "Something smells good." "Just flapjacks and bacon," Ryder said. "Nothing fancy, but it will stick to your ribs." He served them both generous portions and poured her a cup of coffee, which she accepted gratefully. "I am going to head into town after breakfast. The ride will take a few hours each way, so I will likely be gone most of the day." "Will you be all right here by yourself?" Emma nodded. "I will be fine. Actually, I was hoping you might put me to work. The house could use a proper cleaning if you do not mind me saying so. And I noticed your mending pile. I am good with a needle." Ryder felt his cheeks heat slightly. "I suppose I have let things slide a bit," he admitted. "Between the ranch work and everything else, housekeeping falls to the bottom of the list, but you do not have to do that, Emma. You are still recovering." "I want to," she insisted. "I need to feel useful, like I am earning my keep. Please let me help. It will make me feel better about staying here." He could see the determination in her eyes and knew arguing would be futile. "All right," he conceded. "But do not overdo it. If you get tired, you rest. That is an order." Emma gave him a mock salute that made him laugh despite himself. "Yes, sir," she said with exaggerated seriousness. Then her expression softened. "Thank you, Ryder, for everything. I know I keep saying it, but I mean it. You have given me hope when I had none left." Ryder felt that uncomfortable tightness in his chest again, the one that seemed to appear whenever Emma looked at him with those grateful green eyes. "You are welcome," he said gruffly. "Now eat up before your breakfast gets cold." After breakfast, Ryder saddled his horse, a sturdy bay gelding named Whiskey, and prepared for the journey into town. Before he left, he showed Emma where everything was in the house, how to work the pump for water, where he kept the mending supplies. "I have a shotgun over the door," he told her. "Do you know how to use one?" Emma shook her head. "I have never fired a gun." "Then leave it be unless you absolutely have to use it," Ryder said. "I do not expect any trouble, but better you know it is there just in case. If anyone comes around, anyone at all, you stay inside and do not open the door. I will be back before dark." The concern in his voice must have shown because Emma reached out, touching his arm lightly. "I will be fine," she assured him. "I have survived worse than being alone for a day. Go, do what you need to do. I will be here when you get back." Ryder nodded, though he felt oddly reluctant to leave. It was strange how quickly he had adjusted to having her presence, how the house already felt more like a home with her in it. He shook off the thought and swung into the saddle, tipping his hat to Emma where she stood on the porch. "I will be back by nightfall," he promised, then urged Whiskey into a trot. The ride to Colorado City took him through some of the most beautiful country in the territory. The land rolled away in all directions, golden with late summer grass, dotted with scrub oak and juniper. In the distance, the mountains rose like sentinels, their peaks still touched with snow even in August. Ryder had ridden this route hundreds of times, but today he found himself seeing it through Emma's eyes, understanding why she had thought it looked like a dream. It was a hard land, unforgiving to those who were not prepared for its challenges, but it was also magnificent in a way that made his heart swell with pride. Colorado City was not much to look at, a collection of buildings clustered along the base of Pikes Peak, serving as a supply point for miners and ranchers in the area. The town had been founded back in 1859 during the gold rush, and had managed to survive where other mining camps had turned to ghost towns. It was rough around the edges, but had a certain frontier charm, with its wide dirt streets and false front buildings. Ryder rode straight to the general store, tying Whiskey to the hitching post outside. Inside, he found the proprietor, a man named Samuel Morris, arranging tins on a shelf. "Ryder," Samuel greeted him with a nod. "Good to see you. What can I do for you today?" "I need to order some women's clothing," Ryder said, feeling unaccountably awkward about the request. "A couple of dresses, appropriate for work around a ranch. Undergarments too, I suppose, though I am not entirely sure what is needed. And she is pregnant, about 6 or 7 months along, so they need to accommodate that." Samuel's eyebrows rose toward his hairline. "You got yourself a woman out there, Ryder. That is news. When did this happen?" "It is not like that," Ryder said quickly. "She is someone who needed help, so I am helping her. That is all." "Uh-huh," Samuel said in a tone that suggested he did not believe that for a second, but he was a good enough man not to push. "Well, I can help you with the dresses and such. I will need to know her size, though. How tall is she?" "What is her build like?" Ryder tried to think objectively about Emma's appearance, which was harder than it should have been. "Maybe 5'5" or so. Slender build, though obviously she is carrying the baby. Dark hair, green eyes, if that matters." Eye color does not matter for dress fitting, Samuel said, amusement clear in his voice. But I think I have some things that might work. Let me pull what I have, and you can tell me what looks right. He disappeared into the back room and returned with several dresses, holding them up for Ryder's inspection. After some deliberation, they settled on 2 work dresses in sturdy cotton, one a soft blue and the other a practical brown, along with the necessary undergarments and a nightgown that looked more appropriate than Ryder's shirts. "I will put this on your account," Samuel said as he wrapped the items in brown paper. "That will be $5. "Fair enough," Ryder agreed, though he knew Samuel was giving him a discount. "I also need to talk to Doc Harrison. Is he in town?" "Should be at his office," Samuel confirmed. "Everything all right. Just need to arrange for him to check on my guest," Ryder said. "Make sure she and the baby are healthy after her journey." He collected the package and tipped his hat to Samuel. "I appreciate your discretion on this matter." "Your business is your business," Samuel said with a shrug. "Though you know how small towns are, word will get around eventually." "I know," Ryder sighed. "I just want to control the narrative as much as possible, make sure Emma does not become the subject of ugly gossip." "Emma, is it?" Samuel's expression softened. "She is lucky to have you looking out for her." Ryder was not sure how to respond to that, so he just nodded and headed out. Doc Harrison's office was 2 streets over, a small building with a hand-painted sign out front. Ryder found the doctor reading a medical journal, his spectacles perched on the end of his nose. Peter Harrison was in his 50s, with salt and pepper hair and kind eyes that had seen their share of suffering. He and Ryder had served together briefly during Ryder's cavalry days, and a mutual respect had formed between them. "Ryder," Doc Harrison greeted him, setting aside his journal. "What brings you in? You look healthy enough." "I am fine," Ryder confirmed. "But I have a situation I need your help with, and I need to know it stays between us." He explained about finding Emma, about her condition and her journey. Doc Harrison listened without interrupting, his expression growing more serious as the story unfolded. "Of course I will help," the doctor said when Ryder finished. "When can you bring her in for an examination?" "I was hoping you might come out to the ranch," Ryder said. "She has been through a lot, and I think she would be more comfortable being examined somewhere she feels safe rather than in an unfamiliar office." Doc Harrison nodded thoughtfully. "I can do that. How about tomorrow afternoon?" "That will give me time to finish up with my scheduled patients here in town." "Tomorrow afternoon would be perfect," Ryder said, relief washing through him. "I cannot thank you enough, Doc." "Save your thanks until after I have examined her," Doc Harrison said wryly. "But from what you are describing, she sounds like a strong young woman to have survived what she has. With proper care and rest, she should do fine." He paused, studying Ryder with those sharp eyes. "You are taking on a lot of responsibility here, son." "Are you sure you know what you are getting into?" "Honestly, no," Ryder admitted. "But I could not leave her in that barn, and I cannot turn her out now, so I will figure it out as I go." "That is all any of us can do," Doc Harrison said with a smile. "I will see you tomorrow then." Ryder made a few more stops in town, picking up additional supplies and checking at the post office for mail. There was a letter from his cousin back in Ohio, which he tucked into his pocket to read later. By the time he headed back toward the ranch, the sun was past its zenith and beginning its slow descent toward the mountains. He pushed whiskey a bit harder than usual, eager to get home and make sure Emma was all right. The word home echoed in his mind, and he realized with some surprise that it felt right. For the first time in 3 years, his house felt like more than just a place to sleep between work days. When he crested the ridge that overlooked his ranch, Ryder reined whiskey to a stop, taking in the scene below. Smoke curled from the chimney, a welcome sight that meant Emma had kept the fire going. The horses were in the corral, the chickens pecked contentedly in their yard. Everything looked peaceful and domestic, and something warm unfurled in Ryder's chest. This was what he had been working toward all these years, he realized. Not just land and livestock, but a home in the truest sense of the word. A place where people belonged to each other, where they built a life together. He was getting ahead of himself, he knew. Emma had made no promises to stay beyond what was necessary. But he could not help the hope that bloomed in his heart, the possibility that maybe this was the beginning of something more than just a temporary arrangement. He nudged whiskey forward, down the slope toward home. Emma must have heard his approach because she appeared on the porch, shading her eyes against the late afternoon sun. Even from a distance, Ryder could see she was smiling, and that smile made something inside him settle into place. "You are back," Emma called as he dismounted and began untacking whiskey. "How was town?" "Productive," Ryder said, pulling the package of clothes from his saddlebag. "I got you some things. I hope they fit, but if they do not, Samuel said I could exchange them." Emma took the package with wondering eyes, carefully unwrapping the brown paper. When she saw the dresses inside, her breath caught. "Ryder, this is too much. These must have cost a fortune." $5, Ryder said dismissively. "Hardly a fortune, and you need proper clothes." "I will not hear any arguments about it." He led whiskey to the corral, aware of Emma following behind him, still clutching the package to her chest. "Doc Harrison is coming tomorrow afternoon to examine you, make sure everything is as it should be with the baby. You arranged all that." Emma's voice was thick with emotion. "In one afternoon, it was not hard," Ryder said, closing the corral gate. "Doc is a good man. He will take care of you." He turned to face her, noting the tears streaming down her cheeks. "Emma, what is wrong? Did I overstep?" "I just thought—" "No," Emma interrupted, shaking her head. "You did not overstep. It is just, no one has ever taken care of me like this. No one has ever made me feel like I mattered enough to warrant such effort." She wiped at her eyes with the back of her hand. "I do not know how to thank you properly. Words do not seem like enough." Ryder stepped closer, his hands hovering uncertainly before he gently gripped her shoulders. "You do not need to thank me," he said firmly. "And you matter, Emma, more than you seem to realize. Any decent person would help someone in your situation. The fact that others did not says everything about them and nothing about you." Emma looked up at him, and Ryder was struck by how close they were standing, how he could see flecks of gold in her green eyes, how her lips were parted slightly as if she wanted to say something but could not find the words. For a moment, he thought about closing that last bit of distance between them, about finding out if her lips were as soft as they looked. But that would be taking advantage, would be crossing a line he had no right to cross. So instead he dropped his hands and stepped back, clearing his throat. "Let us go inside," he said, his voice rougher than he intended. "You can show me what you accomplished today while I was gone." If Emma noticed the abrupt shift in mood, she did not comment on it. She led him into the house, and Ryder stopped short when he saw what she had done. The place was transformed. Every surface gleamed, the floor had been swept and scrubbed, his dishes were washed and neatly stacked, and the windows were so clean they seemed to disappear. The pile of mending that had been growing for months was now folded neatly on the table, every item repaired with small, precise stitches. "Emma, you did all this today?" Ryder asked, incredulous. "I told you I wanted to help," Emma said, a hint of pride in her voice. "And I found some vegetables in your cellar, so I made a stew for supper. I hope you do not mind that I used your supplies." "Mind?" Ryder could have kissed her. The house smelled like home, like the places he remembered from childhood before disease had torn his family apart. It smelled like life and warmth and care. "I do not mind at all," he managed. "It smells wonderful." They ate together as the sun set, talking about small things. Emma wanted to know about the ranch, about Ryder's plans for the future. He found himself opening up in ways he rarely did, telling her about his dreams of expanding his herd, maybe getting some sheep, building a bigger barn. She listened with genuine interest, asking thoughtful questions that showed she was paying attention. In turn, Ryder asked about her life in Denver, carefully avoiding topics that might bring up painful memories. She told him about the other women she had worked with at the boarding house, about the city's growth and energy, about the mountains she could see from her window on clear days. "I used to imagine what it would be like to live in those mountains," Emma said softly. "To wake up every morning and see them right outside my door, and now here I am, closer than I ever thought I would be." She looked at Ryder across the table. "Life takes strange turns, does it not? A month ago, if someone had told me I would be sitting in a ranch house in Colorado, eating supper with a kind cowboy who found me in his barn, I would have thought they were mad. A month ago, if someone had told me I would find a pregnant woman in my barn and invite her to stay, I would have thought the same," Ryder admitted with a smile. "But I am glad for the strange turn, Emma. I did not realize how lonely I was until I was not alone anymore." The honesty of his words surprised them both. Emma reached across the table, her hand finding his and squeezing gently. "I am glad too," she whispered. "More glad than I can say." They sat like that for a long moment, hands joined across the table, the lamplight casting soft shadows around them. Ryder felt something shift in his chest, a door opening that he had thought locked forever. He was falling for her, he realized with a jolt. It was too soon, too fast, too complicated. But the heart, he was learning, did not much care about timing or complications. It simply felt what it felt. That night, after Emma had retired to the bedroom and Ryder had made up his pallet by the fire, he lay awake for a long time, thinking about the future. 3 months, that was all the time he had guaranteed. 3 months to earn Emma's trust, to show her that not all men were like the ones who had hurt her, to build something strong enough that she might choose to stay. It seemed both impossibly short and dangerously long. Short because every moment with her felt precious, something to be savored and held. Long because every day brought them closer to the birth of her child, to the moment when she would have to decide what came next. Ryder had never been one to back down from a challenge, and he was not about to start now. He would use these 3 months wisely, would show Emma through his actions what she meant to him, would build a foundation strong enough to support whatever they might become. And if, at the end of it all, she chose to leave anyway, well, at least he would know he had tried. At least he would have these memories to keep him company through the lonely years ahead. Doc Harrison arrived the next afternoon as promised, riding up to the ranch on his sturdy black mare. Ryder met him at the porch, introducing him to Emma, who looked nervous but determined. "Miss Jenkins," Doc Harrison said warmly, tipping his hat. "Ryder has told me a bit about your situation. I am here to help in any way I can, and I promise you complete discretion. Whatever we discuss stays between us." Emma visibly relaxed at his words. "Thank you, doctor. That means more than you know." The examination took place in the bedroom with Ryder waiting outside, trying not to pace but failing miserably. He could hear the low murmur of voices, Doc Harrison's calm tones interspersed with Emma's softer responses. When they finally emerged, Doc Harrison was smiling. "Both mother and baby are doing well," he announced. "The baby's heartbeat is strong, and aside from some malnutrition and exhaustion from her journey, Miss Jenkins is healthy." With proper food and rest, I see no reason why she should not have a successful delivery. Relief flooded through Ryder so intensely it made him dizzy. "That is wonderful news," he said, his voice rough. "What do we need to do? How can I help?" Doc Harrison pulled out a small notebook, writing down instructions. "Make sure she eats regularly, 3 solid meals a day, plenty of water. Gentle exercise, walking is good, but nothing too strenuous. And rest when her body tells her to rest." He looked at Emma. "You have been through a trauma, Miss Jenkins. Your body needs time to recover. Do not push yourself too hard." "I will make sure she follows your instructions," Ryder said firmly, earning a look from Emma that was half exasperation, half affection. "I am standing right here," she pointed out. "I am capable of taking care of myself." "I know you are," Ryder said, "but humor me anyway." Doc Harrison chuckled, tucking his notebook away. "I will check back in 2 weeks to see how things are progressing. In the meantime, if you have any concerns, any pain or bleeding, you send for me immediately. I do not care if it is the middle of the night." He shook Ryder's hand, then Emma's. "You are in good hands here, Miss Jenkins. Ryder is one of the most honorable men I know." After Doc Harrison left, Emma turned to Ryder with raised eyebrows. "You really made an impression on him." "We served together," Ryder said with a shrug. "Saved each other's lives a time or two. That creates a bond." He studied her carefully. "How are you feeling?" "Really tired," Emma admitted, "but good, hopeful. The doctor confirmed what I suspected about the due date, early November. That gives us time to prepare." She paused, then added softly, "Us." I said us. "I hope that is all right." "More than all right," Ryder assured her. "We are in this together, Emma, for as long as you want to be." The days that followed fell into a comfortable rhythm. Ryder would wake before dawn, feed the animals, and do the necessary ranch work. Emma would rise a bit later, prepare breakfast, and tackle various household tasks. She proved to be an excellent cook, transforming Ryder's basic supplies into meals that made his mouth water. She cleaned and organized, mended and sewed, and slowly but surely, the house became a home in ways it never had been before. In the evenings, they would sit together on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in impossible colors. Ryder would tell her stories from his cavalry days, carefully editing out the worst of the violence. Emma would talk about her childhood in St. Louis, about her mother who had died the previous winter, about the dreams she had once harbored of a different life. They learned each other's histories, their hopes and fears, their small quirks and preferences. Ryder discovered that Emma had a quick wit and a sharp sense of humor that could make him laugh until his sides hurt. Emma learned that beneath Ryder's gruff exterior was a gentle soul who cried at sad stories and had once nursed an injured rabbit back to health. As August melted into September, subtle changes began to occur. Emma's belly grew rounder, the baby's movements becoming visible from the outside. The first time Ryder saw her stomach ripple with a kick, he was mesmerized. "Does it hurt?" he asked, unable to look away. "Sometimes," Emma said, placing her hand where the baby had just moved. "Mostly it just feels strange, like having someone else living inside you." "Which I suppose is exactly what it is." She hesitated, then asked, "Would you like to feel?" Ryder's heart jumped into his throat. "Is that appropriate?" Emma smiled, taking his hand and placing it on her belly. "We are past appropriate, I think. Besides, you have done so much for us. You should get to experience this too." As if on cue, the baby kicked against Ryder's palm, a firm thump that made him gasp. "There," Emma said softly. "That is your baby saying hello." "Amazing," Ryder breathed, his hand still pressed to Emma's stomach. "Absolutely amazing. There is a whole person in there." "A person we will be meeting in about 2 months," Emma said, and for the first time, Ryder heard excitement rather than fear in her voice when she spoke of the baby. "I have been thinking about names. For a boy, I like Thomas, and for a girl, maybe Sarah." "Both strong names," Ryder approved. He reluctantly withdrew his hand, already missing the connection. "Have you thought about what happens after? Where you will go?" Emma's expression shuddered slightly. "I try not to think about it too much. It seems overwhelming when I do. I suppose I will need to find work somewhere, a place that will take in a woman with a child. It will not be easy, but I will manage. I always do." "You could stay here," Ryder said, the words tumbling out before he could stop them. "I mean, if you wanted to. There is plenty of room, and I could use the help around the place. It would be a fair arrangement, nothing improper. You would have your own space, your independence." Emma stared at him, her green eyes wide and unreadable. "Ryder, I cannot ask you to do that. Taking care of me until the baby comes is one thing, but after, that is a much bigger commitment. People would talk." "Let them talk," Ryder said with more confidence than he felt. "I have never cared much for other people's opinions. What matters is doing what is right. And it seems right to me that you should stay if you want to." "I do want to," Emma admitted quietly. "More than I probably should. But Ryder, you need to understand something. I am damaged goods in the eyes of the world, an unwed mother with a bastard child. If you associate with me, it will reflect on you. It could hurt your standing in the community." "Then it is a good thing I do not have much standing to lose," Ryder said. "Emma, look at me." He waited until she met his eyes. "I do not care about any of that. I care about you, about making sure you and the baby are safe and provided for. If that means weathering some gossip, so be it. I have faced worse." Tears welled in Emma's eyes, but she was smiling. "You are the most stubborn, wonderful man I have ever met," she said. "All right. If you are sure, I will stay, at least for a while, until I can get on my feet and contribute properly." "You already contribute," Ryder pointed out. "This place has never been so well kept, and I have never eaten so well in my life." "I mean financially," Emma said. "I need to be able to support myself and the baby. I cannot be a burden on you forever." "You are not a burden," Ryder said firmly, "but I understand your need for independence. We will figure something out together." He stood, offering her his hand to help her up. "For now, let us just take it one day at a time. That is all any of us can do." Emma took his hand, letting him pull her to her feet. They stood close together in the fading light, and Ryder was acutely aware of how well she fit against him, how natural it felt to have her near. He wanted to kiss her, had wanted to for weeks now, but he held back. Emma deserved better than to be rushed, deserved a man who would court her properly and earn her trust completely. So instead, he simply squeezed her hand and led her inside for supper. September brought cooler weather and the first hints of autumn color in the aspens. Ryder took Emma into town for the first time, wanting her to meet some of the people who would be part of their lives. He could see she was nervous, her hand gripping his arm tightly as they walked down the main street of Colorado City. People stared, of course. It was a small town, and a stranger was always a source of curiosity, especially one in Emma's condition. Samuel Morris greeted them warmly when they entered the general store. "Miss Jenkins, I presume," he said with a kind smile. "I have heard good things from Ryder. Welcome to Colorado City." "Thank you," Emma said softly. "The dresses fit perfectly, by the way." "I cannot thank you enough for your help in selecting them." "Ryder did most of the work," Samuel said. "I just pointed him in the right direction. Now, what can I get for you folks today?" They spent an hour in the store, Emma marveling at the supplies available and Ryder indulging her by buying far more than they strictly needed. He wanted to see her happy, wanted to give her things simply for the joy of watching her face light up. They bought fabric so she could make baby clothes, extra lamp oil, a new set of cooking pots that Emma had admired. By the time they loaded everything into the wagon, Ryder's account had taken a significant hit, but he did not care. The smile on Emma's face was worth every penny. On the way out of town, they passed a small church and Emma asked Ryder to stop. "I would like to go in for a moment if that is all right," she said. "I have not been able to pray properly in weeks." "Of course," Ryder said, helping her down from the wagon. He waited outside, not wanting to intrude on her private moment with God. Through the open door, he could hear her soft voice, though not the words she spoke. When she emerged 20 minutes later, her eyes were red but peaceful. "Thank you," she said as Ryder helped her back into the wagon. "I needed that. I have felt so lost, so disconnected from everything I used to believe in. It was good to remember that I have not been forgotten, that there is still grace available even for someone like me." "Especially for someone like you," Ryder said gently. "You have done nothing wrong, Emma. You loved and trusted, and someone betrayed that trust. The sin is his, not yours." Emma looked at him with such gratitude that Ryder felt his heart squeeze. "I wish the world saw it that way," she said, "but it does not. Still, it helps knowing you believe it." The ride back to the ranch was peaceful, the wagon creaking along the rutted road while the sun warmed their backs. Emma leaned against Ryder's shoulder, and he slipped his arm around her, pulling her close. It felt right, natural, as if they had been doing this for years rather than weeks. "Ryder," Emma said softly, "can I ask you something personal, anything? Why have you never married? A man like you, with land and prospects, you must have had opportunities." Ryder considered the question carefully. "I suppose I never found anyone I wanted to build a life with," he said slowly. "In the cavalry, relationships were difficult. We moved around too much, and asking a woman to follow that kind of life seemed unfair. And after I bought the ranch, I was so focused on making it work that I did not think much about finding a wife. I figured if it was meant to happen, it would happen in its own time." "And now?" Emma asked, her voice barely audible. "Now I think maybe it is happening," Ryder said, his heart pounding. "If the lady is willing." Emma pulled back just enough to look up at him, her eyes searching his face. "Ryder, you cannot possibly want to saddle yourself with someone like me. I come with so much baggage, so many complications." "I want you," Ryder said simply. "Complications and all. I have wanted you since the moment I saw you in my barn, though it took me a while to admit it to myself. I love you, Emma. I love your strength and your kindness and the way you make my house feel like a home. I love how you laugh at my terrible jokes and how you are not afraid to tell me when I am being stubborn. I love everything about you, including that baby you are carrying. And if you will have me, I would like to spend the rest of my life proving that to you." Tears streamed down Emma's cheeks, and for a moment Ryder feared he had overstepped, had revealed too much too soon. But then she was cupping his face with her hands, pulling him down until their lips met in a kiss that was everything Ryder had imagined and more. She tasted of salt and sweetness, of hope and new beginnings. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Emma was smiling through her tears. "I love you too," she whispered. "I have been fighting it, telling myself it was too soon, that I was just grateful for your help. But it is more than that, so much more. You make me believe in good things again, in the possibility of happiness. Yes, Ryder Garrison, yes to all of it." Ryder kissed her again, then rested his forehead against hers, his hands gentle on her shoulders. "We will do this right," he promised. "I will court you properly, and when the time is right, I will ask you to marry me in front of God and everyone. But for now, knowing you feel the same way is enough, more than enough." They sat like that for a long moment, holding each other while the wagon stood still in the middle of the road, and the horses waited patiently. When they finally continued home, everything had changed. The future that had seemed so uncertain now stretched ahead of them, full of possibility and promise. October arrived with crisp mornings and brilliant blue skies. Emma's belly had grown considerably, and she moved with the careful waddle of a woman in her final weeks of pregnancy. Ryder found himself constantly worrying about her, hovering in a way that both touched and exasperated her. "I am pregnant, not made of glass," she reminded him when he insisted on carrying in the water for the third time that day. "Women have been doing this since the beginning of time." "Not my woman," Ryder countered, "and not carrying my baby." The words were out before he could stop them, and Emma froze, her eyes going wide. "Your baby," she repeated softly. Ryder swallowed hard, meeting her gaze steadily. "If you will let me claim it as mine," he said. "I know I am not the biological father, but I already love that child, Emma. I love it because it is part of you. When it is born, I want to be its father in every way that matters. I want to teach it to ride and help with homework and scare off unsuitable suitors when the time comes. I want to be there for all of it." Emma set down the bucket she was holding and crossed the room to him, taking his hands in hers. "You already are its father," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Biology is just science. What makes a real father is showing up, caring, loving. And you have done all of that from the moment we met. This baby is lucky to have you, Ryder. We both are." Ryder pulled her into his arms, careful of her belly, and held her close. "I am the lucky one," he murmured into her hair. "I get you and a ready-made family. That is more than I ever hoped for." They stood like that for a long time, swaying slightly, lost in their own world. Outside, the wind picked up, carrying the scent of approaching winter. There was so much still to prepare, so much to do before the baby came. But in that moment, none of it mattered. All that mattered was this woman in his arms and the life they were building together. Doc Harrison continued his regular visits, pleased with Emma's progress. "Any day now," he said during his visit in early November. "The baby has dropped into position. Could be today, could be next week. Nature works on its own schedule." He showed Ryder what to watch for, what signs meant labor was beginning. "I will come as soon as you send for me," he promised. "But Emma, you have good instincts. Trust your body. It knows what to do." The waiting was agony for Ryder, though Emma seemed remarkably calm. She spent her days preparing baby clothes, washing and folding the tiny garments she had sewn from the fabric they bought in town. She cooked meals ahead and froze them, wanting to make sure Ryder would eat properly when she was too busy with the baby to cook. She nested, organizing and reorganizing the small space they had set up for the baby in the corner of the bedroom. On November 7th, just after dawn, Emma woke Ryder with a gentle shake. "It is time," she said calmly. "The pain started about an hour ago. They are getting closer together." Ryder shot out of his makeshift bed, his heart racing. "I need to get Doc Harrison," he said, already pulling on his boots. "Will you be all right alone for a few hours?" "I will be fine," Emma assured him, though her face was pale. "Just hurry." Ryder saddled whiskey in record time and rode harder than he ever had, pushing the horse to its limits. He reached Colorado City in just over 2 hours and pounded on Doc Harrison's door until the man appeared, already dressed and carrying his medical bag. "Emma," was all he asked. "In labor," Ryder confirmed. "Started this morning." They made the return journey together, Doc Harrison's horse struggling to keep pace with Whiskey's frantic gallop. When they burst into the house, they found Emma pacing in the main room, her hands on her lower back. "About time," she said, trying to smile, though it came out more like a grimace. "These pains are getting serious." Doc Harrison took over with practiced efficiency, examining Emma and pronouncing her well into labor. "It will be several more hours at least," he told Ryder. "First babies take their time. Why do not you make yourself useful and boil some water? Get me clean towels." The next 8 hours were the longest of Ryder's life. He fetched and carried heated water and brought towels, held Emma's hand when she needed him, and gave her space when she did not. He watched helplessly as the woman he loved endured pain he could not imagine, her face contorted with each contraction, her fingers crushing his when the waves came hard and fast. "You are doing so well," he murmured over and over, wiping her forehead with a cool cloth. "So strong. I am so proud of you." As the afternoon faded into evening, Emma's strength began to flag. "I cannot do this," she gasped between contractions. "It is too hard, I cannot." "You can," Ryder said firmly, holding her gaze. "You are the strongest person I know, Emma Jenkins. You have survived so much to get here. You can do this. We can do this together." Doc Harrison checked her again and nodded with satisfaction. "It is time to push," he announced. "Emma, on the next contraction, I need you to bear down as hard as you can." What followed was a blur of effort and encouragement, of Emma's cries and Ryder's steady voice urging her on, of Doc Harrison's calm instructions cutting through the chaos. And then, just as the sun was setting outside, filling the room with golden light, a new sound joined the symphony. A baby's cry, strong and indignant, announcing its arrival into the world. "It is a boy," Doc Harrison said, his voice warm with satisfaction. "A healthy baby boy." He cleaned the infant quickly, then placed him on Emma's chest. "Congratulations, Mama." Emma stared down at her son with wonder, tears streaming down her face. The baby was red and wrinkled and absolutely perfect, with a shock of dark hair and tiny fists that waved in the air. "Hello, little one," she whispered. "Hello, Thomas, we have been waiting for you." Ryder looked at the tiny human cradled against Emma's chest and felt his entire world shift on its axis. This was his son in every way that mattered. This was his family. "He is beautiful," Ryder said, his voice breaking. "Emma, he is absolutely beautiful." Doc Harrison finished his work, ensuring Emma was recovering well and the baby was nursing properly. "You did excellent work, Miss Jenkins," he said as he packed up his supplies. "Your son is strong and healthy and you came through like a champion. Get some rest now. You have earned it." He turned to Ryder. "I will check back in a few days, but I do not anticipate any problems. You are a father now, Ryder. How does it feel?" "Terrifying," Ryder admitted, "and wonderful, mostly wonderful." After Doc Harrison left, Ryder sat on the edge of the bed, watching Emma nurse their son. The baby latched on with enthusiastic determination, his small hands kneading Emma's breast. "He knows what he wants," Emma said with a tired laugh. "That is a good sign." "He gets that from his mother," Ryder said softly, "strong and determined." He reached out tentatively, touching one of Thomas's tiny hands. The baby's fingers immediately wrapped around Ryder's much larger finger, gripping with surprising strength. "Hello, son," Ryder whispered. "I am your papa. I am going to do my best to be worthy of you." Emma reached up with her free hand, touching Ryder's cheek. "You already are," she said. "Look at him, Ryder. Look at what we made. Not just the baby, but this family, this life. We made this together out of nothing but hope and stubbornness. And love," Ryder added. "Do not forget the love." "Never," Emma promised. "That is the most important part." They sat together as night fell, the three of them cocooned in the soft lamplight. Thomas finished nursing and fell asleep in Emma's arms, his small face peaceful and content. Ryder carefully took the baby, cradling him with the awkward care of a new father, and placed him in the cradle they had prepared. The baby barely stirred, already trusting the hands that held him. The weeks that followed were a chaotic blur of sleepless nights and constant feedings. of learning to decipher different cries and changing more diapers than Ryder had thought possible. Emma recovered well, her strength returning day by day, and she took to motherhood with the same determination she brought to everything else. Ryder found himself utterly enchanted by the tiny human who had taken over their lives. Every expression, every sound Thomas made was cause for wonder and discussion. When the baby smiled for the first time, Ryder swore it was intentional even though Emma insisted it was just gas. In early December, as the first snow began to fall, Ryder rode into Colorado City with a specific purpose. He found the small jeweler's shop tucked between the general store and the blacksmith, its window displaying a modest selection of rings and watches. The proprietor, an old man named Jacob Stone, greeted him with a knowing smile. "Ryder Garrison, I wondered when you would be coming by. Word around town is you have yourself a family now." "That I do," Ryder confirmed, feeling a surge of pride. "Which is why I need a ring. 2 of them, actually, wedding bands." Jacob's smile widened. "I thought as much. Let me show you what I have." After careful consideration, Ryder selected 2 simple gold bands, one sized for Emma's delicate finger and one for his own. They were not fancy, but they were solid and well-made, the kind of rings that would last a lifetime. "I will take these," he said. "Can you engrave them?" "Of course," Jacob said. "What would you like them to say?" Ryder thought for a moment. "On hers you are safe now, and on mine forever grateful." Jacob nodded approvingly. "Those are good sentiments, very personal. I will have them ready by the end of the week." Ryder's next stop was the church, where he found Reverend Thomas Matthews preparing his Sunday sermon. The Reverend was a young man, only recently assigned to Colorado City, but he had already proven himself to be kind and non-judgmental. "Ryder," he greeted warmly, "what can I do for you?" "I would like to arrange a wedding," Ryder said, "for Emma Jenkins and myself, as soon as it can be managed." Reverend Matthews studied him carefully. "I have heard talk about Miss Jenkins," he said slowly, "about her situation. Does she understand what marriage means? The commitment she would be making. She understands better than most," Ryder said firmly. "Emma has been through trials that would break lesser people. She knows the value of vows and promises. And I know what I am taking on. This is not a decision made lightly, Reverend. This is me choosing to commit my life to the woman I love and the family we have built together." The Reverend's expression softened. "Then I would be honored to perform the ceremony. When were you thinking?" "Christmas Eve," Ryder said, "if that works for you." "I cannot think of a better way to celebrate the season than by making Emma my wife in the eyes of God and the community." "Christmas Eve it is," Reverend Matthews agreed. "Do you need witnesses?" "Just Doc Harrison and Samuel Morris if they are willing," Ryder said. "I want it small, intimate. This is about us, not about putting on a show." Everything fell into place with surprising ease. Doc Harrison and Samuel both agreed to stand as witnesses, and Samuel's wife Margaret offered to make a small wedding cake. Ryder picked up the rings at the end of the week, the engravings exactly as he had requested. Now all that remained was asking Emma properly. He chose a quiet evening when Thomas was sleeping peacefully in his cradle. Emma was sitting by the fire, mending one of Ryder's shirts, and she looked up with a smile when he entered. "You have been awfully mysterious lately," she said. "Should I be worried?" "Not worried," Ryder said, his heart pounding. "Hopeful, maybe." He crossed the room and knelt beside her chair, taking the mending from her hands and setting it aside. "Emma Jenkins, I know we have talked about this before, about our feelings for each other, but I want to do this right, the way you deserve." He pulled the small box from his pocket and opened it, revealing the 2 gold bands inside. "Will you marry me? Will you let me be your husband and Thomas's father, legally and officially? Will you build this life with me, not just for now, but forever?" Emma's eyes filled with tears as she looked from the rings to Ryder's face. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, 1,000 times yes. I cannot imagine my life without you, Ryder. You saved me when I was lost, gave me hope when I had none, and loved me when I thought I was unlovable. Of course I will marry you." Ryder slipped the ring onto her finger, his hands shaking slightly. It fit perfectly, the gold gleaming in the firelight. Emma cupped his face with her hands, pulling him up until she could kiss him properly. "I love you," she said against his lips, "so very much." "I love you too," Ryder murmured back. "And I promise to spend every day proving it to you." They spent the next weeks preparing for the wedding in small, quiet ways. Emma altered one of her dresses, adding lace she purchased from the general store to make it more festive. Ryder cleaned the house until it shone and made arrangements with Reverend Matthews for the ceremony. On Christmas Eve, as snow fell softly outside, they gathered in the small church with their witnesses. Emma looked radiant in her altered dress, her dark hair pinned up with wildflowers that Margaret had somehow managed to preserve. She carried Thomas in her arms, the baby dressed in the christening gown Emma had sewn for him. Ryder wore his best suit, his hair slicked back, his heart so full he thought it might burst. When Reverend Matthews began the ceremony, speaking of love and commitment and God's grace, Ryder could not take his eyes off Emma. She was everything he had ever wanted, and things he had not known to hope for. They exchanged vows in steady voices, promising to love and cherish until death parted them. When Reverend Matthews pronounced them husband and wife, Ryder kissed Emma with all the love and gratitude he felt, earning applause from their small audience. Thomas chose that moment to let out an indignant squawk, as if protesting being left out, and everyone laughed. After the ceremony, they returned to the ranch for a simple celebration. Margaret had indeed made a cake, along with bringing enough food to feed twice their number. They ate and talked and celebrated late into the night. Doc Harrison gave a rambling toast about how he had known Ryder would find happiness eventually. And Samuel told embarrassing stories from Ryder's early days in Colorado City. Emma laughed until her sides hurt, and Ryder found himself thinking that he had never been happier than in this moment, surrounded by the people who mattered most. When their guests finally left, and they were alone with their sleeping son, Ryder pulled Emma into his arms. "How does it feel to be Mrs. Garrison?" he asked. "It feels like coming home," Emma said simply. "Like everything I have been through was leading me here to you, to this life we are building. I would not change a single thing, Ryder. Not one moment of pain or struggle, because it all brought me to you." "I feel the same way," Ryder admitted. "Though I wish I could have spared you the suffering. You deserved better than what you went through." "Maybe," Emma said. "But I got you in the end, which is better than anything I could have imagined for myself. Besides, the hard times make us appreciate the good times more, do not they? I will never take this for granted, this peace and safety and love. I know how precious it is because I know what it is like to live without it." They stood together by the window, watching the snow fall in thick white curtains that transformed the world into something magical and new. Thomas stirred in his cradle, making small, sleepy sounds before settling again. "Do you ever think about having more children?" Emma asked softly. "I know Thomas is not even 2 months old yet, but I was wondering if you wanted more." "I want whatever makes you happy," Ryder said honestly. "If you want a house full of children, we will have a house full. If Thomas is enough, that is fine too. I am just grateful for what we have." "I think I would like more," Emma admitted. "Not right away, but eventually. I want Thomas to have siblings, to never be alone the way I was. And I want to have your children, Ryder, children we make together." "I would like that too," Ryder said, his voice rough with emotion. "Very much." The months that followed were filled with the ordinary miracles of daily life. Thomas grew with remarkable speed, changing from a helpless newborn to a baby who could hold his head up, then roll over, then sit unsupported. Every milestone was cause for celebration, every new skill a source of pride and wonder. Emma settled into her role as wife and mother with grace, managing the household with efficient care while still finding time to help Ryder with ranch work when she could. In the spring, when Thomas was 6 months old, Emma discovered she was pregnant again. This time the news was met with joy rather than fear, with Ryder sweeping her into his arms and spinning her around until she laughingly protested. They prepared together, already more confident the second time around. In December, a year after their wedding, Emma gave birth to a daughter they named Sarah, after Emma's mother. She had Ryder's brown eyes and Emma's delicate features, and from the moment she entered the world, she had her father wrapped around her tiny finger. The years passed in a blur of growth and change. Thomas grew into a curious, energetic boy who followed Ryder everywhere, eager to help with the horses and learn everything about ranch life. Sarah was quieter, more thoughtful, but with a stubborn streak that reminded Ryder of her mother. 2 years after Sarah came another boy, James, and then 2 years after that, twin girls, Mary and Elizabeth. The house that had once been too big for one lonely cowboy now overflowed with life and noise and love. Ryder expanded the ranch bit by bit, adding cattle and sheep and more land. Emma started a small business making preserves and baked goods that she sold in Colorado City, earning her own money and the independence she had always craved. Together they built something solid and lasting, a legacy they could pass on to their children. As Ryder approached 50, he would sometimes sit on the porch in the evening, watching his children play in the yard while Emma worked in her garden. Thomas was nearly grown now, a young man of 17 who could handle the ranch almost as well as Ryder. Sarah at 15 was already talking about becoming a teacher, spending her free time reading every book she could get her hands on. The younger children tumbled and played with the abandon of youth, their laughter ringing out across the land. Emma would join him on the porch, her hair now streaked with gray, her face lined with age but still beautiful in Ryder's eyes. She would take his hand, their fingers intertwining with the ease of long practice, and they would sit in comfortable silence, watching their family together. "Do you remember that morning you found me in the barn?" Emma asked one evening, a question she had asked before and would ask again. "Every detail," Ryder confirmed. "You were curled on your side, your hand on your belly, and I thought you were dead. When I touched your shoulder and you woke up looking so scared, I knew I would do whatever it took to make you feel safe." "And you did," Emma said softly. "You are safe now. Those were the first words you said to me, the first promise you made, and you have kept that promise every day since." "I have been safe with you, Ryder, safe and loved and cherished. You gave me a life I did not dare to dream of. You gave me the same," Ryder said, raising her hand to his lips and kissing her knuckles. "I was alone before you, Emma. I had land and work and purpose, but I did not have love. You brought love into my life, and everything else followed from that. Our children, our home, our community. All of it stems from that one decision to help a pregnant woman sleeping in my barn. I was so scared that morning," Emma remembered. "I had walked for days, had nothing left, nowhere else to go. Finding your barn felt like a miracle, like God was finally throwing me a lifeline. And then you appeared, and you were kind when I expected cruelty, gentle when I expected violence. You saw me as a person worthy of help rather than a problem to be dealt with. That changed everything." "You changed everything for me too," Ryder said. "Before you, I was just existing, going through the motions. But you gave me a reason to really live, to build something meaningful. Every morning I wake up grateful that you stumbled into my barn that day, grateful that you trusted me enough to stay." They sat together as the sun set, painting the Colorado sky in shades of orange and purple and gold. Their children's voices carried on the evening air, a symphony of life and joy. This was their legacy, Ryder thought. Not just the land or the ranch or the business they had built, but this family, these people they had created and raised together. From the moment he had whispered, "You are safe now," to a frightened woman in his barn, his life had been on a path toward this. Toward love and family and belonging. Toward home. Inside the house, a baby cried. Elizabeth, their youngest, just 6 years old now and still prone to nightmares. Emma started to rise, but Ryder touched her arm. "I will go," he said. "You rest." He found Elizabeth sitting up in the bed she shared with Mary, tears streaming down her face. "Papa," she sobbed, reaching for him. Ryder gathered her into his arms, holding her close and murmuring reassurances. "You are safe now, sweetheart," he whispered, the same words he had said to Emma all those years ago. "Papa is here. You are safe." Elizabeth's tears slowed, then stopped, and she relaxed against his chest with the absolute trust only children possess. Ryder carried her back to bed, tucking her in and sitting beside her until she fell asleep again. As he returned to the porch where Emma waited, he thought about the power of those simple words. "You are safe now." He had said them to Emma when she needed them most, and now he said them to their children, creating a legacy of safety and love that would continue long after he was gone. Emma welcomed him back with a smile, making room for him on the porch swing they had added a few years back. Ryder settled beside her, pulling her close. "Elizabeth had a bad dream," he explained. "She is fine now." "You are such a good father," Emma said, resting her head on his shoulder. "Sometimes I think about how different things could have been if you had turned me away that day. Where would I be now? What would have become of Thomas and me?" "Do not think about that," Ryder said firmly. "That is not the path our lives took. We are here together, and that is all that matters." "I know," Emma said, "but I am allowed to be grateful for the life we have, for the man you are." "You saved us, Ryder, in every way a person can be saved." "And you saved me right back," Ryder countered. "We saved each other, Emma. That is what love does." As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Ryder thought about all the years ahead of them. Thomas would take over the ranch someday, carrying on what Ryder had built. Sarah would become the teacher she dreamed of being. The younger children would find their own paths, make their own lives. And through it all, Ryder and Emma would be there, the foundation their family was built on. The love story that started in a barn one August morning. Years later, when Ryder was in his 60s and Emma's hair had gone completely silver, they would sit their grandchildren on their laps and tell the story of how they met. The children would listen with wide eyes as Emma described walking for days with nothing but hope to sustain her, as Ryder recounted finding a stranger sleeping in his barn and choosing kindness over caution. "And what did you say to Grandma?" the children would ask, though they already knew the answer. "I said, 'You are safe now,'" Ryder would reply, his voice still strong despite his age. "And I meant it. From that moment on, I dedicated my life to making sure she always felt safe and loved." "And did he?" a grandchild would ask Emma. "Every single day," Emma would confirm, reaching for Ryder's hand the way she had thousands of times before. "Your grandfather is a man of his word. When he promises something, he means it. He promised me safety and love, and he has given me both in abundance for over 30 years now." The grandchildren would be satisfied with this answer, running off to play, leaving Ryder and Emma alone again. And they would sit together in the house that had grown and changed with them, surrounded by the evidence of the life they had built, the family they had created, the love they had nurtured through the years. From that one act of compassion in a barn to this moment of contentment in their later years, their story was one of hope and redemption, of second chances and steadfast love. When Ryder finally passed away at the age of 78, surrounded by his wife and children and grandchildren, his last words were the same ones he had spoken so many years ago in the barn. "You are safe now," he whispered to Emma, who held his hand as his breathing slowed. "Always safe. Always loved." Emma lived another 5 years after Ryder's death, spending her time with her children and grandchildren, passing on the stories and values that had defined her life. When she joined Ryder in the small cemetery on the hill overlooking the ranch, their matching headstones bore simple inscriptions. His read, Ryder Garrison, 1842–1920, a man who kept his promises. Hers read, Emma Garrison, 1853–1925, forever safe, forever loved. But their real legacy was not carved in stone. It lived on in the children they had raised, the grandchildren who carried their values forward, the great-grandchildren who would hear the stories of how it all began. It lived on in the ranch that still bore the Garrison name, in the community they had helped build, in the countless small kindnesses they had shown to others over the years. And if sometimes, late at night when the moon was full, visitors to the old Garrison ranch reported hearing whispers on the wind, words that sounded like, "You are safe now," well, perhaps that was just the Colorado breeze playing tricks. Or perhaps it was the echo of a promise kept, a love that transcended death, a story that would be told for generations to come. From that one August morning in 1874, when a lonely cowboy found a pregnant woman sleeping in his barn and whispered those 4 simple words, an entire lifetime had unfolded. A lifetime of love and laughter, of struggle and triumph, of family and belonging. Ryder and Emma's story was not one of grand gestures or dramatic declarations. It was a story of steady, enduring love, of kindness shown and trust earned, of 2 broken people who found each other and built something whole and beautiful together. It was, in the end, exactly what a love story should be. Real, hard-won, and absolutely worth every moment.